The Super Bowl is nearly here, and so we're going to take a super look at nutrition, specifically plant-based nutrition for athletes. We have with us for the very first time somebody who I was just telling her before we hit record, I have no idea how she hasn't been on the show before. She is a dietitian. She is really into nutrition that is evidence-based. So don't go to Joe's Random Health blog expecting to find good information. We're going to get it right from the source today. Brittany Dunn is here with us. Brittany, thank you so very much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I love your story. I love what it is that you're doing. And being a sports guy, I am enamored with the fact that you are bringing your nutrition expertise to the NFL. You do some work with the Philadelphia Eagles. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing there?
Absolutely. So my main role there is to create food for individuals who have specific diets, whether that be vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, what some people refer to as clean eating, or anyone who wants to maintain their weight or allow for any body composition changes. So what I do is work with them, sit down, do some consulting, get their preferences, understand what their goals are, and just relate to them what I can do for them with nutrition. Then I go into the kitchen, put meal plans together and recipes, and then I feed them basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or anything in between.
All right. So when you're on this show, we're going to start with plant-based nutrition. And so we only know of a couple of teams here and there who have a few players who are interested in eating a plant-based diet. How many people on the team have come to you and said, hey, Britt, I want to check out what this whole plant-based thing is about?
So I have about 5 individuals on the team who are geared towards more of a plant-based diet, not necessarily just vegan. I have one athlete who is completely vegan, and then I have athletes who want to make sure that they introduce some fruits and vegetables into their diets that they're not used to. So what I do is I incorporate them in familiar flavors, familiar textures, so that they are able to be introduced with them without being so uncomfortable with the idea.
Big time. That is a huge point, because I would imagine that there's skepticism, there's stigma when you're talking about eating a plant-based diet as opposed to that conventional standard American diet. These guys are like, ah, man, I can't go without that steak. I can't go without that turkey, whatever the case may be. And I would imagine it's kind of fun for you to open their eyes to the fact that you can replicate that kind of texture and flavor.
It's so fun. In the beginning, it was kind of like a challenge because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I was a vegetarian for almost 20 years, so it was very natural for me to be more open to different vegetarian and vegan options. But for them, I think of, okay, here's a meal that I want to make. Here are the flavors that I want to incorporate. And then where can I put bits and pieces of vegetarian and plant-based foods into this meal. So I like to do that by, emphasizing the flavor and cooking it in different ways to add different texture so that it is more appealing and more tasty when they do eat it. And half the time they have no idea. And when they do, they are like, was that tofu in this curry that I had? And I was like, absolutely. He's like, it was good. I never had it that way before. And I'm like, yeah. And then it's just like a pat on my back, but then excited because, when have they been excited about tofu before? And so I was able to introduce them to that.
I know. And the fact that you're getting an NFL player to eat soy to begin with, I think is just magical in itself. I remember in Washington, DJ Swearinger had a stint here, and he was primarily plant-based, eating more of a pescatarian diet, but not a whole lot of fish there. But anyway, he was so hyper-focused on nutrition that he had the team install a smoothie station for him in the cafeteria. And he had a freezer with all kinds of frozen fruit and flax and whatever else he wanted to throw in the particular smoothie that day. He could always go and grab it. And, while guys were eating steaks and chicken and things like that for lunch, he was, downing. Well, he told me it was like 3 of these big monster shakes that he would make. I couldn't even finish one, but this dude, he was putting it down. The one athlete that you have who is very much in tune with the plant-based diet, like, are they all in for it? Are they taking those extra steps like Swearinger was?
Oh, absolutely. And because we know him so well and what his preferences are, pretty much it's it's really easy for us to contribute to his needs. And whether that be in the kitchen or in the fueling station, we definitely have everything available and make sure that what his preferences are, they're met in the kitchen for sure.
Okay. Okay. So you have a kitchen and you have a fueling station. I would love to know what this fueling station is.
So the fueling station is ran by the sports dietitians that we have that work with the team. And what that pretty much has is a bunch of options for either pre or post workout snacks or fueling, and then also like recovery smoothies and shakes. So the athletes have, access to it all the time. It's right outside of the practice and weight room facilities. So it's pretty easy for them to go and get, either supplements, hydration, and then fueling, and then protein options.
How keenly aware are these guys when it comes to nutrition? And I'll tell you why I ask, because it's been about 10 years since I was a beat reporter. And I remember going out to eat with one player who I had really befriended. And we would just go and I would, of course, get my salad, but then this guy would eat a mountain of buffalo wings and whatever else he wanted off of the menu. And it wasn't exactly what I would call the healthiest thing, but who was I to really question him at the time? This guy's in the NFL. But now I think back or I flash forward to where we are today. From my perspective, it seems like guys have kind of stepped up their nutrition game. Is that the case in Philadelphia?
I'd say yes. It's a combination. I think a lot of athletes who are new to the facility and they do see all those options do get really excited in the beginning. So they do consume the chicken wings or whatever. And then throughout the season, their nutrition knowledge is really growing. So they get a better understanding of what nutrition does and how it contributes to performance and body composition. So at that point, the dietitians are doing what they can as far as education. And then the athletes are responding by making choices on their own in the kitchen. So yes, they still do want the chicken wings, but now we're also going to decrease the portion of that and add something else to the plate so that it's more of a well-rounded meal instead of just being excited and getting a large portion of what's there.
When you're talking with them and kind of explaining nutrition and how you can use it to fuel your body, do you get into conversations about recovery time and anti-inflammatory foods and things of that nature?
It depends on the situation. So sometimes speaking with an athlete, it can be 2 seconds, it can be 2 minutes, or it can be, 15 minutes. So I really prioritize what information they need to hear at that time or what they're looking for. So if I'm refilling supplements and an athlete comes by and it's like, what are those even for? That's my opportunity to then talk about inflammation and recovery and brain health when looking at the supplements that they consume each day. Whereas in the kitchen, when they ask about different kinds of foods, it's a lot more simple information given because when they're in the kitchen, they're in and out, grabbing their food, trying to go sit down, either go home or on to the next meeting or on to practice. So it really depends on the situation and timing.
Are there a few players? I know you said that sometimes there are 15-minute conversations, but are there a couple of players maybe that are like all in on nutrition? They're just undercover nutrition nerds and are always kind of picking your brain?
Not quite.
Oh.
No, we're not there yet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you.
Absolutely. My goal is to always input little bits of information as I see them all. So
that's it. Little by little, you're making big changes. The athlete who is plant-based as well, let me ask you, have you had conversations with that person about recovery time? Because I remember, again, going back to the DJ Swearinger example here in Washington, when I interviewed him, it was toward the end of the season. Okay. So this was like week 14, week 15. And as you know, you get that deep in the season, these guys are pretty banged up. And a lot of them are just kind of walking around and they're shuffling their feet. It's really every step can kind of be painful for him. But here's Swearinger, who's just kind of bounding down the stairs, feeling footloose, fancy free, all of that good stuff. He attributed a lot of that to the fact that his body was able to recover so quickly after the beating it would take on Sunday. And he didn't have a lot of the same types of issues that his teammates were having.
Yeah. So for him, he He talks a lot about plant-based diet as something that contributes to his whole body and his whole feel. So he says it's easier for him to move. He feels better throughout the day, prior to and post practice and workouts. So a lot of times even athletes will come up to him because his food is typically situated in a separate area and he goes to grab it. So everybody's like, oh, like, what are you getting? What is that? And, he can easily explain to each athlete, like, this is a vegan meal. Here's why I do it. I feel so much better. Like, literally, he's like, I will never go back. And that always plants a seed in those other athletes' minds. Like, okay, like, maybe this is something I can consider. And some athletes have even been like, well, maybe I can just try it for like a week or a month. And, that sounds little in the beginning, but it really does contribute to so much education that they can, grow into.
Have there been any concerns about plant-based diets and athletes being able to maintain the weight and the muscle mass that they need to perform at such a high level in the NFL? I ask because Trent Williams, when he was in Washington, explored the idea of eating a plant-based diet. He did that faithfully for a while, but said that he had to hop off of it because he had a hard time keeping weight on, which for a left tackle is problematic. So as a nutritionist, what advice would you have for somebody in that position to make sure that they're still getting enough calories to maintain that mass?
I would definitely advise them to focus on protein. A lot of plant-based options for protein are absorbed differently in the body. So make sure that you increase your protein consumption, but also think about all the nutrients. A lot of times we're lacking because, okay, I'm eating vegetables and the volume of vegetables compared to the volume of meat and the calories and nutrients contained in the two are very different. So like the volume is a lot bigger. So while it might appear like you're eating a lot more food, in actuality, the nutrient density is just a little bit different. So really start your day with a plan. If you don't plan it out, it could be a lot more difficult to achieve the amount of macronutrients that you want to if you're not thinking about it ahead of time.
Let me ask you about striking a balance between taking supplements as an athlete and trying to get as many of those nutrients as possible through nutrition. When you're having those types of conversations, what is your personal philosophy on that?
Number one, I try to get it through food, as far as absorption and then the things that come along with it, right? So when I'm eating vegetables or when I'm eating a fruit, I'm not just getting, the micronutrient that's in it, but it's also contributing to antioxidants. It's also contributing to hydration if it's a fruit and something like that. So there's a lot more things that are going on when you consume the food itself rather than just the nutrient in a supplement format. However, I do support the use of supplements, especially for different sports, as far as recovery. It's like a huge thing. And then just injury prevention, especially with professional athletes. They are putting so much strain on their bodies every single day. So a lot of times nutrition by what they're eating is not going to be enough, or it can be, heavily influenced by supplementation.
That's such a fun and interesting conversation to have. When you think about recovery time, you may think about spending, a couple hours a day in the trainer's room, right? Rehabbing an injury. I don't think that most people, athlete or otherwise, would associate injury prevention, injury recovery with what it is that they're eating. And yet what this science continues to show is that, yeah, there is a direct correlation between the two. As a nutritionist, that's got to get you kind of fired up.
Oh, for sure. And so it's like a lot of people just think of food like I'm hungry. And that's what food is there for, to feed me. But there's so much more. And that's why I say it's fuel. It's fuel for your body. It affects so many different pathways, and not just for you as any average person, but also especially in athletics. And the science is there to back it up. It's not it's not just there for food, but we can also use it as fueling, recovery, energy to get through, muscle building, for injury, as far as decreasing inflammatory, and just things like that, just to make sure that it's not just, it's a tool. It's definitely bigger than it appears to be.
No question. And because you're here, we're talking about athletics. I gotta pivot and just ask, when it comes to protein and eating a plant-based diet, your plant-based player, are they struggling whatsoever to get all of the amounts of protein that they need to perform?
No. So it's a combination of what I'm cooking for them, especially because there's not that many athletes on a vegan or vegetarian diet. I am very in tune to what each and every meal looks like for them. So I can do the calculations for them and make sure that I'm getting enough protein in. And I think a lot of times when we think of protein, we think of meat. So when there's a meat, a vegetable, and a carbohydrate on a plate, we look at the meat and that's the protein. But when I look at a plate, I see that there's 5 grams of protein in this, there's 8 in this, there's 3 in this. So I'm able to, see the whole plate and the nutrient makeup of everything in each of the ingredients, so that the athlete ends up getting everything that they need through the whole meal.
One of the things that I like about you is that you're clearly passionate about that. Like you said that with a big old smile on your face. And I just see the wheels turning in your head, like visualizing a plate. It's like, this has this, this has this, this has it. And like, it just makes you happy to be thinking about that, right?
Yeah, it's fun because, a lot of people don't see it that way. So I value food. I value what it brings to the table, what it brings to the plate. And, and I'm excited about what it tastes like, what it looks like, but also what it can do for me and what it can do for an athlete or what it can do for a parent to reach their goals.
All right. So we've talked a lot about the players. Is there anybody else in the office up there in Philadelphia that may be interested or veg-curious and they come and they talk to you? All right. Talk to me about these people. Who are the undercover veg heads?
So we have an individual in the athletic training area, and then we have somebody in the top offices. So the thing is with that is with one of the individuals, meat or certain types of meat, he tries to avoid. So he'll typically do like turkey and chicken and salmon and different kind of fish, but then steer away from red meats or pork and things like that. So those options are always available. But a lot of times what I do is make the vegan vegetarian option very similar or very, familiar flavors or foods, especially in Philadelphia, and, make them available to them as well. So, it's not just the same thing every day. It's not just simple foods with like, a fake meat and a pasta. It's really taking the time to be super creative with the foods so that it's appealing. So with them, it started with, what's that meal in the corner over there, to, I'll try that. And then, definitely asking each day what it is, or just now I know that I need to add them to the meal count and they're going to take that meal that day.
That's awesome. Well, it just, all it does, like a lot of times when I hear these stories, it really is just what you're saying. It's like somebody sees something on one plate, or, that one person is eating something different. Ooh, what's that? Exactly. And suddenly they're asking questions, and it's kind of like that just opens up a whole new world for them. It's really fun to watch that happen. Really quick before we move on to some of the fun stuff, you mentioned, especially in Philadelphia. So now that got me wondering, like, have you figured out a way to replicate a cheesesteak in a healthier plant-based version?
Yes, I have. So in 2 or 3 different ways. So one way is a pea protein option that I've used, and another, as far as, a meat, is a seitan, and then another is a mushroom option. So with those 3, I make sure that I marinate the meat or the meat substitute prior. And I often just like to make it pretty simple. And then I go ahead and grill it so that I can adjust the texture and make sure that it's not too chewy, get a little crisp on it, add flavor in that way. And then I prepare everything pretty much the same. And then I have different cheese options. So cheese substitute options. It just depends on who it is that I know is eating it that day or what their preferences are. So with that, I'll either do a cashew-based cheese or a nut-based cheese, or I'll do something like a cheese substitute that comes shredded and add a either like a also substitute cream cheese or a substitute plant-based milk, and add flavors to that as well.
I love how you kind of run the gamut of like the healthier plant-based options up to, some of the stuff that you can find in the store to kind of tailor it to where that person is, tailor it to their tastes. Like in your role, I would think that that's critically important to be able to do that and just kind of give the person what it is that they need.
Yeah, and it's a combination of that and, restriction of time and availability. So when I think of my friends who want to become vegan or vegetarian, what is the most feasible option for them? We can start with the plant-based frozen option and then move on to the vegetable option and, just introduce them gradually instead of, saying, okay, here's the vegetable option. It's the best way because this, and that, but you also are going to have to set aside more time to prepare it. So it's, meet them where they are, whether that be texture and taste wise or time and availability. What can I do for them?
Before, I know that you have put together a few recipe ideas for the Super Bowl for the exam roomies here, but somebody told me, matter of fact, I think it was something that I read about you online, that you have a banging recipe for overnight oats that's quite popular among your colleagues. Is this true?
This is very true. And it's actually not just one recipe, it's every single one.
Is that right? Okay.
Absolutely.
So can you give us, like, even though there's multiple, like, what is Brittany Dunn's #1 overnight oats recipe?
Ooh, definitely depends. Oh, here, I'll tell you what started it all. What started it all was the chocolate chip cookie dough overnight oats.
Ooh.
And it's so funny because when I tell people these flavors, they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way that's going to be healthy or be able to fuel me through the rest of the day. And it totally is. So it's, pretty simple ingredients. So typically I'll do oats, I'll do a plant-based milk, and that's for every single person who's there. And then I'll sometimes do a nut butter, and that's really what adds, a depth of flavor. And then individuals can choose to add either honey or different nut butters on top. We have different fruits, and just like we have dragon fruit, which is something that's super new to people. So, I take the time to introduce them to it. And if they don't want it on their oats, I'll give it to them like in a little 1-ounce cup to try, just so they're able to, get different experiences with food. But chocolate chip cookie dough is what started it all. And what elevated it from there were the pumpkin spice overnight oats and the gingerbread overnight oats.
Ooh-wee. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I see you, Brittany. Okay. I love it. You and we're going to talk after this and I'm going to get those recipes.
I got you.
Oh, I need them in my life. One more thing before we jump to the Super Bowl recipes. You have a background in bodybuilding as well. Does that kind of give you a little bit of credibility with the guys who otherwise might be skeptical?
I think most of them don't know.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Just because it was very new to me when I did it. I was a vegetarian prior to bodybuilding, and I told my coach I was a vegetarian, and he's like, okay, like I got you. And he gave me a meal plan that included chicken and fish, thinking that's what went into a vegetarian diet. So there was a lot of, educational differences there. And then that's where like, I feel like I really had to get out of my comfort zone and just do what was told to me from a nutrition standpoint. So that's why I'm really big on education. And I don't want, athletes to just take information as it is. I want them to ask, I want them to be curious, and I want to give them the why behind, what I'm telling them to do, so that it means something to them and they're motivated to follow it.
Yeah, and where would you recommend somebody go to do that kind of research to make sure that they're getting good information? Because as you know, I mean, you thumb through Twitter, you hop on Instagram, like anywhere that there's a blog, there's a whole bunch of random stuff out there, a lot of which may not necessarily be true. So when somebody's asking you where you go to get your info, what do you tell them?
So there are actually now dietitians who specialize in bodybuilding, just as there are clinical dietitians and community dietitians. There's a group of dietitians who are called the bodybuilding dietitians. So I would reach out to them and work with them in conjunction to someone who is meeting the needs for the exercise portion of the bodybuilding. So definitely a dietitian. And if you don't know a dietitian who specializes in bodybuilding, reach out to a dietitian anyway, and they might be able to find that accredited person for you, just to make sure that you're providing enough nutrients for muscle building, but also for recovery, and so that you don't set yourself back for when you're no longer competing.
Yeah, I was just interviewing a few vegan bodybuilders over the last few months, and I think that the average person would be like, "There's no way these guys aren't eating meat. Like, it's just impossible." But then you got like Robert Cheek. He actually just had a bestseller out on the New York Times list last year, and then Giacomo Marchese. I mean, both of these guys are just jacked. They're part of the Vegan Strong Team, and it's just like, wow, if they're able to do that without eating meat, like we got to rethink a lot of things. And then before we get to the Super Bowl recipes, I'm sorry, one more thing. You don't like cooked fruit. Not even like grilled pineapple. Like grilled pineapple is one of God's great treasures.
I know people like it, so I make it for them. I even included it in one of the Super Bowl snacks. But it's just not my thing. I will try it though, because I do want to like it, because everyone else does, and I feel like an outcast. But it's a texture thing for sure.
I got you. My wife is the same way. She cannot do a cooked apple. She thinks that is just the most horrific thing ever, So we all have our things. I'm not here to slam you. I'm just like, I just want to make sure that you've tried grilled pineapple. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So. All right, big game is coming up, and I can think of no better person to give us some ideas of some things that we might want to snack on as we're watching kickoff there. So if Britt, you are throwing a Super Bowl party this year, what will you be serving?
So turns out my family is vegan. So I come home to that and cook for them. So I did cook them a fully vegan Thanksgiving meal, and now we're on to a Super Bowl. So when I think of Super Bowl food, I think of just snacking the whole time. So, the recipes that I put together really focus on that. So the first one I did was a peach barbecue meatball. And the reason why I chose meatballs is because I feel like there's always some kind of, snack that you can easily just pick up, typically with a, just a fork or whatever, and just have 1 or 2 or 5. So the reason I chose meatballs is one time I was in the 6th grade and we had a potluck at school, and my mom gave me a full crock pot loaded with meatballs. And for some reason, they did not get eaten in the classroom. But on the bus after school, everybody kept coming to the back of the bus, grabbing meatballs back and forth. Probably not good now if you think of like germs or whatever. So we're just a bunch of 6th graders grabbing meatballs with our hands. But, they were so good, and no one thinks of like a kid carrying a crock pot of meatballs and everybody getting excited about it. So with this, I kind of just wanted to make something that was tasty, but also easy to grab. And that just kind of reminded me of, just a little story that was fun. So
you had to lug a crock pot to school with you on the bus that day?
Yes.
That is commitment. Like if I were you, I would have been heartbroken when you set that out there and nobody's eating the meatballs initially. Like I would have been like, Mom, you made me do all this for nothing.
It definitely was embarrassing at first. But then, the kids did get in trouble from the bus driver because you're not allowed to run back and forth in a moving bus. But for the meatballs, it was worth it.
All right. What else are you serving?
And then I also did, just because like I work with the Eagles. I had to do a Philly cheesesteak reference. So I did a Philly cheesesteak egg roll.
Ooh.
And with that, I did use a plant-based protein option. So with that, I did a pea protein, which was dried and rehydrated. But I do offer an option for anyone to change up the protein option in there, or the meat substitute option, to either a walnut or a mushroom and things like that, just to make sure that it's, it fits what everybody's preferences are.
What type of mushroom would you recommend? Like, are we talking shiitake? We talking chopped portobello? Like, what is your go-to for this?
My go-to is either like a cauliflower mushroom or a lion's mane, and just because it provides different textures.
There you go. You know you're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about when they drop lion's mane mushroom on you. Not many people will do that. All right. That automatically puts you in the 1%. So, all right. So we've got the meatballs, we've got the cheesesteaks. Is there anything else you're serving up this year?
Yep. So I've got crispy potato skins that I've hollowed out and filled with a smoky lentil chili, and then had different toppings available for individuals. And then I always think of dips when we do Super Bowl. So with that, I have a roasted garlic and herb hummus. And I was able to just go outside in my family's backyard and grab some dill and some parsley from my mom's garden and utilize those. And then I also did a creamy avocado dip, which can be made creamy in different ways. I chose to use a vegan plant-based yogurt. You can choose to use milk, or you can choose to use a cream cheese or something like that.
Can I come to your Super Bowl party?
Absolutely.
I know that I'm going to be in Florida. Actually, I'm speaking in Florida that day, but I can try to fly up and get to Philadelphia before kickoff.
If anything, I will save a plate for you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Just go ahead and put some meatballs in a crock pot.
I can do that for sure.
Leave it on warm for me, and I'll be right there. Oh, man. Brittany Dunn, you are amazing. And from the bottom of my heart, I see nothing but the biggest and brightest future for you. So it has been such a thrill to have you here on the exam room, and I hope to have you back on.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I really appreciate this opportunity. It was super fun.
If your health IQ was a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well, and help to make your world a healthier place.